So continuing on the question that in order to start reorienting to the world as a place of multiple dimensions, some invisible dimensions in fact, that have layers of meaning and where things are not what we just think they are, where we are not who we think we are, but that we're actually part of a larger process that's larger than us. As you say, requires moments of opening, moments of enlightenment, moments of grace. Have you had such moments in your life? And would you
just continue with these questions?
I continue with just very surface questions. Is there anything that you'd like to share of your own spiritual development and how you came to taste this dimension of reality?
That's that for me is the essential question. And I told this story a couple times. I had a recent radio interview on Voice America, and I talked about this a little bit. But I very much did. And I was, to do a 1 minute snapshot of my life, born in Brooklyn, grew up upstate New York, conservative, raised as a conservative Jew.
Where upstate?
In Rochester.
Okay.
And was presented with a brand of spirituality and Judaism that had no nourishment for me. It was about ritual. It seemed to me, as a young man, about conformity, and there was never an explanation. I learned all these Hebrew prayers. I had no idea what they meant, and I thought they had no meaning. I thought the whole purpose was to simply memorize them, so you could teach your kid to memorize them, so their kid could memorize them, and so we carry on some tradition that nobody even knew what it meant anymore. That's how it felt to me. And I was an atheist for many years. I thought this anthropomorphic religious idea of God was ridiculous. It was something of a bygone era that needed to be ejected, that people used it as a crutch to avoid the hard realities of life, and that everything was
for the masses.
Yeah, everything was an accident. And that's a level of development that everybody goes through. You reject the conformity, you move to a rationality, and you start to reject all those things without the awareness that there's something above rationality. The problem with being at the rational level is you think rationality is the roof, as opposed to simply just a part of an arsenal of you as a human being.
One way of viewing things.
Right. So that somehow science and is the top.
Yes.
There's nothing above that. And anything that you claim above that is simply mystical nonsense, right? And that you can say that until you've experienced it. It's like saying, I don't believe in love when you've never been in love. You have no right to even say that. And to a person who's been in love, you could talk to me till you're blue in the face about chemicals and evolution and the urge to procreate, and I'm going to say, that doesn't matter. I love this person. And that feeling is as real to me as this chair, right? So I did have an experience like this. I had suddenly, talk about an act of grace. I really had gone very far down the road in terms of rejecting all these things. I found myself one day in synagogue after 30 years of not being there. I was drawn there for some reason. I sat in the back, and I felt, as people started singing the songs, I felt this connection of this ancientness. And it's somewhat of a long story, but as I'm sitting there going, why am I here? This is ridiculous. Suddenly I had an experience of the divine that called to me. And the light in the room changed. It became very silvery and very flickery. And suddenly the screen that I had created around myself, that we all have, that keep us separate from other people, and say who I am and who I'm not, and who you are and who you're not, and why I shouldn't connect with you, suddenly it just disappeared. And I was left totally vulnerable and open in a way that I had never known before. And I felt this flow of love for the people around me, that I had undifferentiated, unjudgmental love for these people. And I saw them with a clarity that I never knew was possible, with eyes that weren't spiritual eyes at that moment. And I sat and I kind of quietly, I'm going to get choked up, I quietly cried to myself about this beauty that I had no idea existed in other people and in myself and in this connection. And suddenly the silvery lights, it's going to sound very strange, David, so you may have to lock me up afterwards. It surrounded me. It enveloped me. I felt this enclosure around me. I felt a hug, and I felt an endless love around me, and I received a message. And again, it's not a voice. I received this message that said, "I love you." in a way that I never heard that word used, and that I just love you exactly who, what, where you are. I also received another message. But, Alan, you have to change. I'm not going to let you continue on this road you're going down. I need you to change. And at that moment, I promised. I said, I promise. I will do this. And this was 15 years ago, and I've tried my best to keep that promise. I've fallen off the wagon every now and then, but that opened my eyes to this dimension. I've had many other such experiences after that, with people, with trees, and directly with God, if you will, in moments unbidden. So so to me, I know this is real, and my passion is to communicate an image and a vision of that spiritual realm that is accessible and that's transformative to people. It's not based on dogma. Right. That's not based on intellect. That's based on experience. And to help bring people to that. If I could bring one person to that sense I had, and I know the power that it has to change you, and it changed me in many ways. Not only did I grow spiritually, my career took off at that moment. My career took off. Everything in my life became better. I suddenly became open to meet the woman of my dreams, my soulmate, my wife Sharona, where I knew 10 years before that I never would have been, this would not have happened. So honoring that call has been the purpose of my life.
So you were blessed with, we could say, the cosmic elevator suddenly took you to the roof of the building, and you had the panorama. And your experience has been shared by a lot of people throughout the ages, but my experience is that many people have to climb step by step that building, and that it's a hard climb. It's difficult, and sometimes you're on the third floor, you get a bigger perspective. Sometimes you're on the fifth floor, and it's very fortunate indeed to be transported directly to the top.
Right.
And do you think that your immersion as a child in a spiritual tradition, even if you didn't believe it, gave you some of, as you say, more accident prone to that? And if so, what about all the people that grew up in homes where there was no tradition? Do you think they can spontaneously have this type of experience just as easily?
I think the spontaneous experience has nothing to do with your background, and even with you. It's an accident. It's not an accident. It's an accident from our perspective. Whether heavens have a plan for you, which they do,
right?
And somehow at that moment you need a kick in the pants, like I did. It'll come down. If you're doing fine, that's fine. We tend to think that people who receive this are like, wow, the fortunate ones. In reality, from a spiritual perspective, they're the kind of the idiots.
Okay.
They're the people that need something dramatic to wake them up. Because other people are doing good work. I mean, I meet people all the time who are social workers, who are psychiatrists and healers like yourself, who are doing wonderful, holy work. Those people don't need this. They're doing the work already. And they don't need a spiritual practice. They're out there doing it. You know, there's a saying from the mystics that in the world to come, a world perfected, there won't be religion. It's a Jewish teaching. The Jewish sages say, we're not going to need all this stuff. The only purpose that we have of all this stuff is to help us get there. It's like you're driving a car. Once you get to your destination, you don't need the car anymore. Yes. But the car is what got you there. This is one of my wife's wonderful analogies. She talks about the spiritual car. So I think what my upbringing as a Jew did was give me a place to go. I could have as easily gone to Buddhism. I could have as easily gone somewhere else.
Or walked in the forest, for that matter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you have people like Ram Dass, born a Jew, had that revelation, moved over to Hinduism. And those are all fine. Those are all fine. I find that my soul is called to my particular tradition. I think all the traditions are wonderful. It's what feels best for you. I think they all have equally good toolboxes.
Yes. Thank you for your candidness.
Sure.
Yeah, I could use one of those myself.
A new toolbox?
No, a cosmic revelation. But then again, you better be careful what you ask for,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly, because you don't know what it's going to ask you for.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
And maybe, in fact, that's why so many people are blocked off from experiencing things outside their usual realm because they don't know what it's going to ask for or where it will take them. And it's just too frightening.
Yeah. Well, that's absolutely right. And I think that's the great segue for, I think, we have to have one more conversation about that, because that is the juicy stuff.
Okay.
Talk again in a minute.
Very good.
Okay.